doing. I had no idea.
No idea what she was doing. No, you were just being you and go, I didn't know. I didn't start this rumor. Yeah.
I never want it to seem like I'm ungrateful for the opportunities I've been given. I can be having the best time of my life and still wish people would stop sending me death threats. Those words, meant to humanize Rachel Zegler, would instead mark the beginning of a new storm. The Snow White actress, already at the center of online controversy, hoped her heartfelt message would quiet her critics and shift the conversation back to her work. But what she posted instead ignited the exact chaos she was trying to escape. In a now viral video filmed from what appeared to be her bedroom, Zegler looked directly into the camera with a mix of frustration, weariness, and defiance. She spoke candidly about the toll the criticism had taken on her, insisting that no matter how much hate she faced online, people still showed up, still supported her, and still cared about her work. Her tone wavered between emotional vulnerability and passive-aggressive frustration, as though she was torn between wanting to appear strong and needing to be understood. "When I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces," she said passionately. "And people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, my cracks, and my breaks, and there are many, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will still wait in line to see." It was the kind of poetic statement that could have come off as inspiring in another context. But online, it landed differently. She spoke like someone trying to reclaim her narrative, to remind the world that she was more than the headlines and the memes. Unfortunately for her, the internet wasn't ready to listen. Within minutes, clips of the video spread like wildfire across every platform. On TikTok, creators began stitching her video with exaggerated reactions, some pretending to wipe away tears, others parodying her words with comedic skits. "Excuse me, your curtain," one joked, mimicking the tone of a melodramatic movie scene. "Please allow me to help." "Oh wait, you don't need help. You're not a damsel in distress, right?" It was brutal, mocking the very image Zegler had tried to reshape. Meanwhile, over on X, formerly Twitter, the conversation descended into pure chaos. Instead of sparking empathy, the video became the centerpiece of a digital pile-on. Critics accused her of being out of touch, overly dramatic, and disconnected from the reality of the film's reception. What was supposed to be a vulnerable confession was instead read as self-centered and tone-deaf. The timing couldn't have been worse. Disney's Snow White had just opened to disastrous box office numbers. With a production budget reportedly around $250 million and an opening haul barely scratching $43 million, the movie's performance was nothing short of a catastrophe. Commenters wasted no time connecting the dots between the film's failure and Zegler's public image. "It's not even surprising anymore," one post read. "Every time they make these live-action remakes, they manage to alienate fans. Casting one of the most disliked and out-of-touch actresses in Hollywood and calling it progress? It's like they're doing it on purpose," another wrote. "They turned Snow White into a moral lecture and cast someone who seems to resent the character she's playing. What did they think would happen?" Across social media, people dissected her every word and gesture from the video. Some argued she was being unfairly targeted. Others insisted she brought the backlash upon herself. To many, her tone felt performative, an actress playing the role of the misunderstood star rather than genuinely opening up. The line about the winged victory sculpture, meant to symbolize resilience through imperfection, became the most quoted and mocked phrase of the day. Memes compared her to a statue crumbling under pressure, while others edited her video with dramatic orchestral music and captions like, "When you think you're the Louvre." YouTubers and critics quickly joined the conversation. One reviewer opened his video by saying, "All right guys, I watched Snow White so you don't have to." He went on to summarize the film's new creative choices, noting that this version of Snow White didn't get her name from her fair skin, but from surviving a snowstorm. "Her parents are the king and queen of a utopian society where everyone shares equally," he explained. It's a kind of fairy tale socialism, where fairness means equality of outcome instead of beauty or virtue. That's their version of fairest of them all. I'm not even joking. Reactions like that only fueled the narrative that Disney's remake had completely lost touch with the spirit of the original. What should have been a touching reinvention of a classic tale became a case study in how modern adaptations can backfire when mixed with divisive public figures and online outrage. For Rachel Zegler, the video that was meant to be a moment of clarity had become another spark in a firestorm. Her message about gratitude and vulnerability was buried under layers of ridicule and resentment. She had hoped to remind people of her humanity, But instead, she became a symbol of everything audiences claim to hate about Hollywood's new era: performative, disconnected, and painfully self-aware. Screenshots of review bombs, meme threads mocking Rachel Zegler's past statements about not needing a prince, and out-of-context clips from old interviews began resurfacing like clockwork. Every few hours, another snippet would trend. One where she called herself a narcissist, another where she laughed at the original Snow White for being very evidently made in 1937. In one viral moment, she joked, "There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. Weird." Those clips, once brushed off as playful remarks, suddenly looked like arrogance. In other interviews, Zegler's tone didn't help her case. She spoke confidently about how she fought to play the part. "I will elbow everyone out of the way to play this role." What was meant to be lighthearted ambition now read as entitlement. She also made bold statements about the new film's direction, saying that a lot of people will assume it's a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie, referring to co-star Andrew Burnap, before adding with a laugh, "All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." Then came her most infamous line, "If I'm going to stand there for 18 hours in a dress as an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it's streamed online." Critics and fans alike seized on it, framing her as ungrateful and out of touch with the legacy of the role she'd inherited. She emphasized repeatedly that their version of Snow White was not going to be saved by the prince, explaining, "She's not dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." For many, this was the final straw. What was supposed to be a modern feminist reinterpretation of a beloved fairy tale now felt to audiences like an outright rejection of its magic. What should have been Rachel's triumphant comeback story had turned into a digital witch trial. And in the court of public opinion, she wasn't Snow White, the innocent girl lost in the woods. She was the villain of her own story. People didn't forget her earlier comments dismissing the 1937 original as weird and creepy. She'd laughed while describing the prince as a guy who literally stalks her, which might have seemed harmless at the time, but in hindsight, sounded disrespectful toward the source material and the generations of fans who grew up loving it. Those clips, replayed endlessly and stripped of context, aged poorly. They no longer came off as witty observations. They came off as disdain. But the backlash wasn't just a matter of online discourse. It translated into the cold, hard reality of box office numbers. Snow White opened with a stunningly weak $45 million domestic debut, a disastrous start for a movie that cost more than $250 million to make and carried the legacy of Disney's first ever animated classic. For comparison, The Little Mermaid, which faced its own share of online controversy, managed a much healthier $95 million opening weekend. Analysts were floored. Industry insiders described the numbers as a wake-up call for Disney, calling the remake one of the company's biggest miscalculations in years. The fallout was immediate. Theater chains began to quietly demote the film, replacing it on their largest screens with higher-performing titles and relegating Snow White to less desirable showtimes. By its second week, some cinemas had dropped it entirely. For Disney, a studio known for near-automatic box office dominance, this was unfamiliar territory. For Rachel, it was an unraveling in real time. Her face, once splashed across billboards as the new face of a fairy tale icon, had become a lightning rod for internet scorn. Even Disney's formidable marketing engine couldn't turn the tide. The narrative had already escaped them. Public opinion was set, and no amount of PR polishing could change it. The story was no longer about a film, it was about a fallen star. Then came the Oscars. On paper, it should have been a moment of redemption. "Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot," the announcer declared, as the two actresses stepped onto the stage to present the award for Best Visual Effects. The script was standard. Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen. Their work makes the impossible seem possible. Rachel delivered her lines with professional polish, but the tension between her and Gal was impossible to ignore.
Yeah, what was that like, Rachel?
Yeah, tell me what it's like, Don. No, I mean it's all professional work, so it's very fun. And
On the red carpet earlier that night, photographers caught the strained atmosphere between them. Gal smiled politely for the cameras, but barely engaged with Rachel. The two stood inches apart but looked worlds away. During interviews, Gal maintained her composure, while Rachel's attempts to interact were met with polite distance. What fans once hoped would be a symbol of two strong leading women celebrating their film together instead became another uncomfortable chapter in the ongoing drama. For viewers watching at home, the scene spoke volumes. The cameras captured every stiff smile, every avoided glance. It was the visual embodiment of how far the Snow White project had fallen, from a symbol of empowerment and modern reinvention to a cautionary tale about Hollywood ego, miscommunication, and the unforgiving power of the internet. Observers online noticed immediately. From the moment Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot stepped onto the Oscars stage together, the tension was unmistakable. Body language experts, gossip outlets, and fan blogs dissected every gesture and glance, pointing out the stiffness, the lack of warmth, and the palpable discomfort between the two actresses. What Disney's PR team had tried to spin as a moment of unity only exposed the cracks that had been forming for months. These two women, once promoted as partners in a modern retelling of a fairy tale sisterhood, were no longer on good terms. In the days that followed, insiders quietly confirmed what many had suspected. While Gal Gadot was contractually obligated to participate in the Snow White press circuit, she had since chosen to distance herself from the project and from its increasingly controversial star. What made it worse for Rachel was that Gal's own reputation seemed completely untouched by the fallout. She continued to book roles, secure brand endorsements, and appear at industry events without a hint of scandal. She smiled through it all, untarnished and poised, while Rachel was left to carry the full weight of the movie's disastrous reception. Rachel's Oscars appearance had been intended as an act of recovery, a way to subtly shift the public narrative and reintroduce herself as a talented, misunderstood actress, unfairly vilified by the internet. Instead, it had the opposite effect. The event became a visual confirmation of her isolation, an unspoken acknowledgement that Hollywood had already begun to move on without her. The grace and goodwill that had followed her breakout success in West Side Story had evaporated. What once came across as youthful confidence now read as arrogance. Her determination to modernize a classic had come off not as innovation, but as disrespect. Her attempts to reclaim control of her image backfired spectacularly. The Snow White role, meant to cement her as a new generation's leading lady, became the very thing that fractured her public image and jeopardized her career trajectory. While the viral meltdown video was the spark that reignited the outrage, the fuel had been building for months, layered through interviews, sound bites, and viral comments that fans never forgot. As soon as box office numbers began to collapse, the internet's collective memory kicked in. Users began resurfacing old clips from her Snow White press interviews, stringing them together in compilations that painted her as dismissive and ungrateful. Chief among them were the infamous moments where she rolled her eyes while discussing the 1937 original. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her, she said, laughing. Weird. The line, once said in jest, became symbolic of everything fans felt had gone wrong. She scoffed at the romance, dismissed the charm, and proudly promised that her version would be nothing like the one audiences cherished for generations. Rachel described her Snow White as a leader who doesn't need saving, insisting that the new version won't be dreaming about true love or waiting around for a prince. The intention was empowerment, but it landed like an insult. Instead of being praised for delivering a modern feminist twist, she was accused of missing the point entirely. To fans, she hadn't elevated the story, she'd rejected its heart. The backlash was no longer confined to online trolls or fringe commentators. Lifelong Disney fans, the families who visit the parks, collect the merchandise, and support the brand through every release, began to turn away. Parents posted videos saying they wouldn't take their children to see a movie led by someone who openly mocked the original. Grandparents shared emotional TikToks reminiscing about seeing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as kids, explaining that they had no desire to watch a remake by someone who seemed to hold the story in contempt. Even neutral viewers joined in, not out of outrage, but disappointment. They criticized not just what Rachel had said, but how she had said it. Her tone during interviews came across as smug and dismissive, her humor as unearned superiority. Words like entitled, arrogant, and out of touch filled the comment sections of every clip. Unlike other celebrities who might endure a backlash and emerge with industry allies rallying to defend them, Rachel stood completely alone. There were no directors speaking out in her favor, no co-stars offering public support, no fellow actresses posting words of solidarity about the pressures of fame. Even a single gesture, a quote tweet, a brief statement of kindness might have softened the storm, but none came. Instead, there was silence. A deliberate, chilling silence that said more than words ever could. Behind the scenes, that silence carried real consequences. Disney's executives reportedly grew uneasy about her marketability. Future casting discussions where her name might once have been suggested were now being met with hesitation. Industry insiders whispered that she had become radioactive, too controversial for brand partnerships, too polarizing for studio-led projects, and too unpredictable for major marketing campaigns. For Rachel Zegler, the fairy tale had fully inverted. What began as a dream role, a chance to embody one of cinema's most iconic heroines, had turned into a public cautionary tale. She wasn't just battling critics anymore. She was facing the slow, merciless machinery of Hollywood itself, a system that quietly steps back when it senses a liability. And for the first time in her career, Rachel found herself with no script, no spotlight, and no allies left to share the stage. Reports soon began to trickle out that Rachel Zegler's career prospects were in serious jeopardy. Industry whispers suggested that studios were quietly rethinking her involvement in upcoming projects. One insider told a major trade outlet that while Rachel had once been in talks for several high-profile roles, those conversations had slowed down significantly in the wake of the Snow White debacle. What had once been a fast-moving ascent through Hollywood's ranks now felt like a career frozen mid-air. Marketing teams, too, were reportedly reevaluating her viability as a face of major campaigns. The question wasn't just whether she was talented, it was whether she was bankable. Would audiences pay to see a movie headlined by Rachel Zegler? Or had her name become synonymous with backlash, controversy, and underperformance? In Hollywood, where perception is currency, the answer mattered more than anything. And the perception around Rachel had shifted dramatically. Just 2 years earlier, she had been hailed as the next great star of her generation. A fresh, charismatic talent with a powerhouse voice and undeniable screen presence. Her Golden Globe win for West Side Story had solidified her as an it girl. Critics called her the future of the musical genre, and even Steven Spielberg himself praised her as one of the most promising young performers he had ever worked with. But with Snow White, all of that momentum evaporated almost overnight. The same industry that had championed her now seemed reluctant to touch her. What had once been a bright, ascending image had curdled into something far less flattering. Her confidence, once read as strength and authenticity, was being reframed as arrogance. Her creative passion was now labeled as ego. It wasn't just a single bad film dragging her down, it was the complete collapse of a public persona that had once seemed unstoppable. Worse still, the timing couldn't have been more disastrous. In an era when audiences are hyper-aware of celebrity behavior and quicker than ever to voice their discontent online, perception spreads faster than any PR team can contain it. Rachel's controversy didn't just become bad press, it became symbolic. To many, she represented everything they felt was wrong with modern Hollywood. The rewriting of beloved classics, the preaching over storytelling, and a generation of stars more concerned with messaging than magic. To others, she was a case study in unchecked ego, a celebrity whose entitlement had turned fans against her. Entitlement had turned fans against her. People weren't just skipping Snow White because of its reviews, they were actively rejecting her. The decision to avoid the film became, for some, a form of protest. Box office receipts weren't just numbers, they were a verdict. The more the film faltered, the louder the conversation grew about whether Rachel herself had become box office poison, a label no rising actor wants to earn. Behind the scenes, her team was said to be in damage control mode. Publicists, agents, and managers scrambled to reframe the narrative, pitching redemption-style magazine profiles, late-night talk show appearances, and vulnerability interviews that might humanize her again. The goal was clear: to make Rachel relatable, to remind the world of her talent, and to distance her from the storm that had consumed her. But the damage might already have been done. Viral clips don't disappear, and audiences rarely forget when they feel talked down to. Hollywood, of course, has seen stars bounce back from worse. Some careers have been salvaged through humility, others through sheer charisma. But so far, Rachel hadn't displayed either. Instead of showing contrition or self-awareness, she doubled down. Her posts remained defensive, her tone combative, and her interviews unrepentant. Rather than cooling the fire, each new comment seemed to fan the flames. The internet no longer viewed her as misunderstood, they saw her as stubbornly out of touch. As insiders began to distance themselves, the narrative hardened. Rachel Zegler, once Disney's chosen face of a new era, had become its biggest misfire. What was supposed to be her crowning achievement, her transformation into a global superstar, had turned into a cautionary tale about pride, timing, and the unforgiving nature of public perception.